everybody, my beautiful artists. I wanted to play with this kind of unique dagger brush. And these are a few of them. Now today I'm going to be using my dagger brush. This comes in my subscription kit. This is the Dagger by Princeton. It's the Neptune, really, really soft. This is the Dagger brush I bought several years ago from Zen Art. I actually really like it. It's quite snappy, which my brush is as well. And the reason I think, especially for me with the Dagger brush, I like it to be snappier is when it's soft, it can tend, it's a great brush. This is, again, the Princeton Neptune, which Neptune is a very soft line. What can happen though is when you're using it, especially for beginners, it's going to flop around and it's just harder to control. So today I'm going to show you some of my favorite ways to use a dagger brush, and I will go through a few of, you know, the leaves, the traditional ways to use it you see all the time. I also want to show you some fun ways that I use it. What I love about a brush, by the way, I'm going to be using my Mylang palette here, Paul Rubens Mylang. I'll just give this, if you're new, this is a great little palette. The colors are gorgeous. They are so vibrant, yet really transparent. Love the colors they put in here. I don't have to reach for a different palette because one of my colors I love are missing here. This has all of them. So that is kind of a pet peeve just of mine. When I get a palette, I want it to have all my favorite colors. I will be reaching over to this side because I've got this beautiful palette over here I bought recently. I filled it with my Mylang's tubes. So you'll see me going back and forth. Let me see if I can get more of that in there so you can see how I'm mixing with water. And I did go ahead and just give these a spritz as well. But these are your Paul Rubens Mylangs. I just put them in here. And what I love about this palette, by the way, it's quite heavy. I leave it on my desk, but look at that huge mixing area. I love that. And it's got a ton of wells. It even has these wells in the corner, which I haven't really used. This is plenty, but anyway, okay. And then make sure you have your 2 containers of water. I use this beautiful MEEDEN ceramic because I love it. It's nice on my desk. It's not a distraction. And most of all, I'm not going to dump this. Really important, you wash your brush and you rinse it. For those of you that are new, watercolors are so transparent. If you don't do that and you're moving from, say, red to green, which are opposites on the color wheel, you're going to get mud, and then you're going to think you're doing something wrong when really it's just your brush isn't washed quite enough. I've got 140-pound cold pressed paper. This is the Artisto 9.5 by 11. And let's get started. So first I'm going to start with just our trees. Love the trees. Oops, I had some paint on my finger there. So let's just do that. I'm wetting my brush and then I'm just going to scrape it off a bit. I don't, you know, hold your brush up, and if a drop is forming at the bottom of your brush tip, you probably have too much water, for beginners especially. And then I'm going to go into, let's just go into our green, and we're just going to play a bit here. So let's just create a tree. I'm going to start with my short end towards the center, my pointy long end outwards. I'm laying the brush down on this beautiful little edge. My goodness. And tap, tap, tap to tap some of that water off. And I'm just going to start dragging my brush around, kind of like a tree shape. You don't necessarily want lollipops, right? And what I love, what makes a good brush for me, is when I don't have to, just like my paint palette, I don't have to reach for another brush because I want that little edge. Use this beautiful little point, like you just saw me do, to create some of those edges coming out. And then I'm gonna go in there and add in maybe some touches of gold. Be careful with that gold. It can be quite saturating. A little bit more of that gold. And I'm just dabbing in. So I'm grabbing that paint, dabbing in while this is wet. And now maybe a tiny bit of our olive green I'll just put in here. And down towards the bottoms, maybe underneath. So I'm using the tip of my brush, just like that. And we've got a beautiful little tree. I'm just gonna wash and rinse my brush. I can even go in there with some of my cad yellow or maybe some beautiful fall color of sepia. Look at that. To depict the changing leaf colors. I mean, you can do all kinds of fun stuff in here. I can lift a little bit out if I want to take some tissue here and create some light spots. Maybe more on this right side to show the light coming in. And then I'm going to, I don't even have to reach for another brush. I'm going to create that trunk. So let's grab some of our brown paint right out of the palette, and I'm going to come down and just flicking over to the right side. I can use that beautiful little tip to create some of those branches coming out, poking through the trees. Now, you could wait for this to dry more and you'll get some more definitive lines. I'm going to go along that edge, dipping into a dark brown or even some black, and just taking that edge and dotting it in there, maybe pulling some of that out for some of those branches. I can use that fine little tip. That's why it's so important too. We really take care of those tips. And look at that. Now I might even rinse my brush, scrape it off. I'm even going to tap it off a bit, and let's just drag that across the bottom. And there we go. Look at that. Now here's another fun tree. So I'm going to create, let's create like a pine tree. So I'm going to go into my brown again. I'm not going in with the tip because I want to protect that tip. And let's just create, I'm going to add a little bit more water, a tree trunk coming down the middle, and rinse my brush, wash it and rinse it, scrape it off, tap it off, and now I'm going to go in there using that beautiful tip again. Let's start with some of our greens. Like that. And I'm just using very light pressure and go into, maybe have a little bit of your dark green there. But if you do this while the trunk is wet, you're going to get some beautiful blends. So just zigzagging back and forth, adding in different colors. Very light pressure. And look at that, go into the dark green. I'm just using the tip there, maybe a tiny bit of brown. Let me get a little bit wet. Oh, see, I don't have enough paint, so I just tapped the tip of my brush in there a tiny bit. Just like that. Maybe a tiny bit of gold. And there's a beautiful little tree. I might even go in, rinse my brush off, tap it off, pick up some more of that brown, and let that go right into the center, maybe just a few to show shadow in the middle there. You don't want to bring it out too far. And then we could do, let's do a little pot on the bottom. So rinse, wash and rinse my brush, tap it off, go into that gold, tap, 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 scrape some of that paint off. I'm going to lay my brush down on its edge and pull it across. Look at that. It's a perfect little pot. Now I can go in with that with some of our dark brown. Tap in. And we've got a perfect little tree. You can always go in along the bottom and create just a bit of a shadow. Like that. And there we go. That's my second tree. My third tree, I think, is really fun. This is a willow tree. We have a lot of these in the state park here. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to use my brown. So I've got my brush wet, going in and just bringing the tip of my brush in there and using the tip again. Very light pressure. And creating some of these lines. And now I'll go in, rinse my brush, tap it off, pick up some of those greens in my palette. And these trees are so pretty. They hang down to the ground. I believe they're called willow trees. And I'm kind of mixing my different colors here. Isn't that pretty? Now, as I get into the middle of the tree, I might just add in more green, dark green, like an olive green. Let's grab a little bit more here. Very light pressure again. That is your thin stroke. And you can practice those. Practice those thin strokes. If you haven't seen my beginner series, I go through that a lot. And look at how fun. So maybe I want to add in there a little bit of the yellow green and maybe some of that yellow ochre, or even the yellow ochre by itself, just to look like little parts of the tree that the sun is shining on. There we go. And we're about done with this one. But isn't that fun? Now I think I will go ahead and add some deeper, darker olivey greens right in the middle, just to show maybe some shadows and things. I kind of reshape that tip a bit in my palette. Just like that. And there's our willow tree. Okay, how about something different here? Let's try, I have this little mushroom sitting on my desk here. Let's try a little mushroom. I'm gonna look at that. So I'll go in with that gold, maybe some of my sepia. Just love that color. It's such a beautiful fall color. About 50-50 water, so it's moving quite easily in my palette. And I will tap off because I'm using more water. So tap, tap, tap. Tons comes off. I'm going to, again, just like here, start with the long point out and come around, create that mushroom cap, come up on the point. And you can always use that beautiful little tip to shape it out. Now, while that is damp, I'm going to go into my dark brown, just a bit on the tip. And I'm going to add in, because on my desk, I can see it's a little shadowy on that side. Just like that. Wash, rinse my brush. Now what I'm going to do here is I've got a clean brush. I'm going to dot in some water spots. And that's going to give us this really fun effect. Now for the little mushroom stalk, a light value of that gold, so a little more water, I'd say maybe 75% water, 25% pigment. And let's just lay our brush down on that edge. I've got the pointed side up and pull it across, kind of how we did for our tree trunk. Just like that. And look how easy that is. Now, a fun thing you could do here with a credit card or whatever you've got is scratch in some areas. I'm dabbing off my brush and I'm going to just, with a clean brush, just pick up a little bit of that water. And look at that. Isn't that wonderful? And where I scratched in, it's leaving little marks because you've indented into the paper so the paint goes into the paper. And you could even, let's add just a teeny tiny bit touch of red. Mine doesn't have red, but that's okay. Just for some interest here. Along this edge. And there you go. Isn't that the cutest little mushroom? Now, if you wanted, you could take a tiny piece of your tissue and pick up a few highlights on the side over here. That's up to you. You could even highlight a few areas there. And there you go. If you want to add a little grass down on the bottom, just take that little tip. And look how cute. Isn't that fun? Let's see, what else can we paint? How about a rock? Let's do a rock. So on one side of my brush, let me get some of this black brown in my palette here. Let's see, how can I show that to you? I'm going to spin this around. And I want a lighter value, so meaning a little bit more water. So I've got my black brown in there. Now I'm going to rinse my brush off. Rinse it, wash it, wash it. then rinse it. Now I'm scraping it off, and what I'm going to do is dry that off a bit, and I'm only going to load the pointy long end with that black paint. And actually you could even load the other side with just a touch of that yellow ochre in my palette. And now I'm going to create that fun little rock. So here we go. I'm laying my brush down with the point down because I want the dark paint at the bottom. So point, press, like that. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more. And I'm just using the tip of my brush to create some little areas. But look at that. Now, I can go in there with just a little bit more gold. So that double dipping can be really fun. And look at that little rock. If you want, get that little credit card or stippler out, create some cross hatching down in the bottom. That'll make the shadows even show up more. You can create some little, well, that's too dry, so let's use our brush. Dry it off, make sure all that black's out of there. Go back to your green, just like our little mushroom, and add in grass here and there. And you've got a fun little rock. All right, let's see, anything else? I hope you're enjoying this. I just love this stuff. I think that's all of them. Of course, you've got, you know, I was trying to kind of stay away from the traditional, you've got leaves. And double dipping with this is so much fun, you guys. So dip into your green, and then with the tip of your brush, grab some of that blue. Let's create a stem. Here's our stem. And then with the tip down, pull out, press. Look. So that is a very traditional way to use the brush. Point, press. I'm laying my brush down. And you've got these beautiful leaves. I dipped into the green, then the tip I dip into that blue. Point, press. And this is a fun brush. Point, press, drag it to the side. And there you've got some leaves. You could do little ones coming out. Hard to paint because I don't want to cover what I'm doing. So that is a really fun technique as well. Double loading your brush. You can do a fat leaf. So here we've got our stem, come out, pull it down, and now you've got a fat little leaf. Pull up on the tip, lay your brush down on its side, and you've got another fat little leaf. Point of it, lay it on its side, a little bit more pressure, really open it up. And that is double loading your brush. Look at how beautiful that is. You can always use the tip of your brush to just shape out some leaves. And then something really fun. I used to practice this at night all the time. It's just long, flowy leaves. So if you're working on bulbs, point, press, and then turning your brush, coming up on the tip. And I think it's so much fun to double dip with this one. So loading my brush with the green, tip of my brush with the blue, point, press, then up on its side, I'm twisting my brush, and there you go. Isn't that fun? All right, well, I hope this gave you some really fun ideas. In addition to how we traditionally use the brush, this just has so much more uses. You know, I love a brush, like I said, you can use the tip and the full width of the brush. I mean, you could even use this for washes, say an ocean. On its side, look at that. I loaded the tip of the brush, so I've automatically got a lighter amount on the bottom, which just already helps with an ocean. Let me do that again. So loading my brush with water, I'm adding some of that blue to the top half of my brush, maybe a little bit of our dark blue, water mostly on the bottom, pressing my brush tip up, and look at that. That is a beautiful ocean. Maybe a little bit more dark on top. Zigzags. And there you go. All right, everybody, have fun. Share your paintings. Hop on over to Patreon. I have mini series there, 3 of them that are free. I've got a pen and ink series going right now. And I hope you play with this. I'd love to hear your feedback. Don't forget the cute little mushroom, the rock, and just keep having fun. I'll be right here reminding you, you are an artist. I promise you, if you are here, called to be here, you truly have an artist in you. And just have fun and play, experiment, and discover. And I will see you all soon.